The Binar warship struck without warning, tearing through the Dauntless's shields as if they were tissue paper. Captain Jeffrey Collins gritted his teeth as the deck shuddered beneath his feet. The pride of Earth's merchant fleet reduced to a battered husk in a matter of seconds by an unknown alien aggressor. It was 2257, and the UES Dauntless had been transporting a cargo of rare Earth elements and advanced robotics through the Antares sector when the Binar vessel appeared on their long-range sensors. The Binar Empire, known only through rumor and speculation, had a reputation for advanced technology and strict isolationism. Now they had opened fire on an unarmed civilian ship without provocation. Collins ordered evasive maneuvers and returned fire, but the human weapons barely scratched the alien ship's advanced defenses. With his ship crippled and his crew in mortal danger, Collins played his last card, an experimental phase singularity torpedo, Earth's most cutting-edge and destructive technology. The torpedo punched through the Binar shields and hull, inflicting critical damage and forcing them to withdraw. News of the skirmish spread quickly, prompting outrage across human space. Admiral Draco, the enigmatic leader of the Binar forces, delivered an ominous ultimatum to Earth's leaders: submit to Binar rule or face annihilation. Earth's parliament descended into chaos, split between those advocating diplomacy and those demanding a show of military strength. Amidst the turmoil, Collins received a new mission. In recognition of his quick thinking and bravery, he was promoted and given command of the UES Retribution, a prototype warship. His orders: gather an elite crew, hunt down those responsible for the attack, and send an unmistakable message that human ships were not to be trifled with. As he prepared for the trials ahead, Collins couldn't shake the feeling that the attack on the Dauntless was no random act of aggression, but rather the opening move in a chess game that could decide the fate of humanity itself. Captain Collins stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, his eyes fixed on the holographic display of his hand-picked crew. Commander Lara Singh, her dark hair pulled back in a tight bun, studied the ship's tactical readouts with a cool intensity. Marcus Reed, the chief engineer, scratched his salt and pepper beard as he pored over the vessel's cutting-edge propulsion schematics. Lieutenant Jake "Ripper" Reese lounged at the helm, his fingers dancing across the controls with a cocky grin. Ensign Kai Tanaka, the youngest of the bridge crew, monitored the comm channels with a determined focus. Collins cleared his throat. "You all know what's at stake. The Binar caught us off guard once. That's not going to happen again. We're going to find out what they're up to and put a stop to it." As the Retribution prepared to depart Earth orbit, a priority message flashed across Tanaka's display. "Sir, incoming transmission from an unknown source. It's encrypted." Collins frowned. On screen. The view screen flickered, resolving into a shadowy figure masked by digital distortion. "Captain Collins, I have information you need about the Binar attack. Meet me in the Rigel system. Coordinates to follow. Come alone." The transmission cut off abruptly. Singh raised an eyebrow. "It could be a trap." "Could be," Collins agreed. "But we can't afford to pass up a lead. Reese, lay in a course for Rigel. Reed, I want the ship's defenses prepped and ready." The Retribution sliced through the void, her sleek hull jam packed with an arsenal of particle beams, fusion cannons, and missile batteries. As they approached the rendezvous point, the sensors chimed a warning. "Sir, we've got a Binar frigate on an intercept course. They're powering weapons," Tanaka reported, his voice tight. The enemy ship loomed on the monitor, a jagged mass of dark metal and pulsing energy. A harsh voice crackled over the comm. "UES Retribution. This is Captain Zora of the Binar Imperial Navy. Stand down and prepare to be boarded." Collins's teeth clenched. "It was a setup! Battle stations!" The bridge exploded into controlled chaos as the crew snapped into action. Singh rapidly analyzed the frigate's capabilities, searching for weaknesses. Reed's fingers flew over his console, diverting power to the shields and weapons. Reese wrenched the ship into a sharp, evasive pattern as the first salvo of enemy fire hammered against the hull. "Reese, get us into that asteroid field," Collins barked. "We need to even the odds." The Retribution dove into the tumbling rocks, the Binar ship in hot pursuit. Reese jinked and wove through the treacherous terrain, the smaller human ship's agility proving a match for the frigate's raw power. Reed's eyes lit up with a sudden idea. Captain, I can rig an EMP burst from the drive core. It'll fry their systems, but we'll be dead in the water too. Do it, Collins ordered. Sing, get ready to hit them with everything we've got the second their shields drop. Reed worked frantically, sweat beading on his forehead as he rewired the core's safety protocols. Ready! Fire! A blinding pulse of energy erupted from the Retribution, washing over the Binar ship in a cascading wave of electromagnetic fury. The frigate's lights flickered and died, its shields collapsing. Sing unleashed a withering barrage of missiles and cannon fire, tearing gaping holes in the enemy's hull. Reese gunned the engines, rocketing the Retribution out of the asteroid field and into open space. Behind them, the crippled Binar ship listed, venting atmosphere and debris. Collins sagged back in his chair, adrenaline still surging through his veins. Good work, people, but this is a long way to go. Sing, did you get anything from their comms? Sing nodded grimly. They kept referring to some kind of deep space outpost. I've got a partial set of coordinates, but the rest was too degraded to recover. Collins rubbed his chin thoughtfully. It's a start. Plot a course. We need to find that base and figure out what the hell the Binar are up to before this escalates into a full-scale war. As the Retribution sped through the stars, Collins couldn't shake the feeling that they were playing into someone else's hands. The Binar's aggression, the mysterious informant, the convenient intelligence, it all felt too orchestrated to be mere chance. Little did he know that light years away, in the shadowed heart of a Binar dreadnought, Admiral Draco smiled coldly as he studied the readouts from Zora's crippled ship. The human captain was proving even more predictable than he had anticipated. Let them chase ghosts and whispers, he mused to his aides. Every step brings them closer to the prize, and when they unwittingly deliver it into our hands, the galaxy will tremble before the might of the Binar Empire. The pieces were in motion, the gambit underway, and in the depths of space an ancient power stirred, waiting for the one who would claim it and shape the destiny of worlds. The Retribution dropped out of hyperspace, its sleek hull gleaming against the backdrop of the Kuiper Belt's frozen vastness. Captain Collins leaned forward in his chair, eyes fixed on the main view screen as it displayed a magnified image of their destination, a dense asteroid field that seemed to shimmer with an unnatural energy. We're at the coordinates, sir, Reese reported, his fingers dancing across the helm controls, maintaining a safe distance from the field. Collins nodded. Begin long-range scans. Let's see what we're dealing with. Ensign Tanaka's brow furrowed as he studied the sensor readouts. Captain, I'm detecting a massive structure hidden within the asteroids. It's unlike anything I've ever seen. The view screen shifted, zooming in on a section of the asteroid field. There, nestled among the tumbling rocks, was a sprawling complex of dark metal and pulsing energy fields. Jutting from its center was a massive cannon, its barrel easily the size of the Retribution itself. My God, Commander Singh breathed. Look at those defense systems. Particle cannons, plasma torpedoes, graviton disruptors. They've got enough firepower to take on an entire fleet. Collins's eyes sharp. Options? Before anyone could respond, alarms blared across the bridge. Reed's eyes widened as he stared at his console. Sir, I'm detecting a massive energy buildup from the outpost. It's off the charts. The view screen flickered, showing a simulation of the energy readings. A swirling vortex of light erupted from the cannon, tearing a hole in the fabric of space itself. It's a quantum singularity cannon, Reed explained, his voice filled with awe and horror. One shot from that thing could wipe out an entire battle group. Collins's mind raced. They couldn't let the Binar keep such a devastating weapon. We need to get closer, gather more intel. Reese, prep a stealth drone for recon. Singh, I want a full tactical analysis of that base's defenses. As the crew sprang into action, Collins felt the weight of command pressing down on him. They were vastly outgunned, facing an enemy of unknown strength and capability. But the stakes were too high to back down now. Reese's voice cut through the tension. Drone deployed, sir. Sending telemetry now. The bridge crew watched in tense silence as the drone's feed appeared on the main screen. It wove through the asteroids, its advanced cloaking technology rendering it invisible to the outpost's sensors. As it drew closer, the sheer scale of the Binar base became apparent. Singh's eyes narrowed as she studied the readouts. "There," she said, pointing to a network of glowing conduits snaking through the structure. "Those power lines all lead to a central hub. If we could overload it, we could take out the whole weapon system." Collins finished. He turned to Reed. "Can we do it?" The engineer rubbed his chin thoughtfully. A precise strike on the main capacitor could trigger a cascade failure, but we'd have to get close. Real close. Collins nodded, a plan already forming in his mind. "All right, people, listen up. We're going to hit them hard and fast. The Retribution will launch a full-scale attack on the outpost's outer defenses. While we've got their attention, Singh and Reese will lead an infiltration team to sabotage that power core." Reese grinned, cracking his knuckles. "Just like old times, eh, Commander?" Singh's expression remained stoic, but there was a glint of anticipation in her eyes. "We'll need every trick in the book for this one, Ripper." As the crew prepared for battle, Collins stared out at the asteroid field, knowing that the next few hours would determine not just their fate, but potentially that of the entire human race. The Binar had to be stopped here and now, before their terrifying weapon could be unleashed upon an unsuspecting galaxy. "All hands," he announced over the ship-wide comm. "Battle stations. We're going in." "To make history." Collins's voice rang with tenacity as he addressed the crew. As the Retribution prepared to engage the Binar outpost, an urgent transmission crackled through the comms. Ensign Tanaka's eyes widened as he decrypted the message. "Captain, it's from Earth Command. Priority Alpha." Collins frowned. "On screen." Admiral Yamamoto's grim visage filled the view screen. "Captain Collins, we've received critical intel. The weapon you've discovered is just the tip of the iceberg. The Binar are constructing an entire armada of ships equipped with these singularity cannons." A hushed silence fell over the bridge. Collins felt the weight of this revelation settle in his gut like a cold, heavy stone. Yamamoto continued, "We're dispatching Captain Jax Ryder and the UES Phoenix to infiltrate Binar territory and gather more intelligence. Your new orders are to rendezvous with the Phoenix and provide support for their operation." "Understood, Admiral," Collins replied, his mind already racing with the implications. "We'll make for the rendezvous point immediately." As the transmission ended, Collins turned to his crew. "Change of plans, people. We're linking up with the Phoenix for a deep strike into enemy territory." Reese let out a low whistle. "Infiltrating Binar space? That's suicide." "Maybe," Collins agreed, "but it's our only shot at stopping this before it's too late." The Retribution streaked through hyperspace, pushing its engines to the limit. Days later, they dropped out of FTL near a nondescript system on the fringes of Binar-controlled space. "I've got the Phoenix on sensors," Tanaka reported. "They're holding position behind the third moon." "Take us in, nice and easy," Collins ordered. As they approached, Collins studied the Phoenix on the console. The ship was smaller than the Retribution, built for stealth rather than firepower. Its matte black hull seemed to absorb the very starlight around it. A comm request pinged, and Captain Jax Ryder's face appeared on screen. "Captain Collins, glad you could join the party." "Wouldn't miss it for the world," Collins replied dryly. "What's the situation?" Ryder's expression turned grim. "We've made contact with a Binar defector named Thren. She's given us the location of the main shipyards where they're building the Singularity Cannon fleet." "A Binar defector?" Singh's eyebrow arched skeptically. "Can we trust her?" "We don't have much choice," Ryder admitted. "But she's already proven her value. There's more. We picked up a human scientist named Salov. He claims he can upgrade our deflector shields to counter the cannons." Collins nodded. "So what's the play?" "We're going in hot," Ryder said. "My team will infiltrate the shipyards to plant a virus and steal shield specs. Your job is to run interference and be ready for a quick extraction." "Understood," Collins replied. "We've got your back." As the two ships prepared for the perilous journey into the heart of Binar space, Collins couldn't shake the feeling that they were stepping into the jaws of a trap. But with the fate of humanity hanging in the balance, there was no turning back now. The Retribution and Phoenix slipped silently through the void, every system running dark to avoid detection. Ahead loomed the imposing silhouette of Theta Draconis VII, surrounded by a swarm of orbital shipyards. "This is it," Collins murmured. "All hands, prepare for battle stations." The Phoenix's distress signal pierced the void, a siren song drawing Admiral Draco's forces like moths to flame. Captain Ryder's eyes gleamed as he watched the Binar fleet converge on their position. "Transponders active," his tactical officer reported. "We're broadcasting false power signatures now." Ryder nodded, tension coiling in his gut. "And now we wait." Aboard the Retribution, Collins gripped his chairs as Draco's vanguard approached. "Steady," he murmured. "Let them get nice and close." The trap sprung with devastating precision. The UES Reliant and its battle group erupted from stealth, their phase singularity weapons tearing through the unsuspecting Binar ships. Caught in the crossfire, Draco's fleet disintegrated under the relentless assault. "Now!" Ryder barked. "Upload the virus!" Silov's codes surged through the shipyard's networks, corrupting systems and rendering the nascent Singularity cannon fleet inert. Alarms blared across Theta Draconis VII as production lines ground to a halt. On the Phoenix's bridge, a proximity alert wailed. "Energy spike detected planetside," the science officer shouted. "It's some kind of bomb." Ryder's blood ran cold. "Evacuation order, now! All personnel back to the ship." As the crew scrambled, Thrin's fingers flew across her console. "I've isolated the signature," she reported, her voice tight. "It's coming from an underground complex." Ryder hefted his pulse rifle. "Prep a strike team. We're going in." The surface of Theta Draconis VII was chaos. Binar drones swarmed the air, their energy weapons carving swaths of destruction. Ryder and his team fought their way through waves of cyber troopers, each step bringing them closer to the bomb's location. They breached the final chamber, and Ryder's heart sank. There, hunched over the pulsing core of the device, was a figure he recognized all too well. "Salov?" he breathed. The scientist turned, his eyes glowing an unnatural blue. Cybernetic implants marred his face, a grotesque merger of man and machine. Without a word, he lunged at Ryder. The fight was brutal and swift. Ryder's enhanced reflexes gave him the edge, but each blow struck felt like a betrayal. Finally, with a sickening crack, Salov crumpled to the floor. "I'm sorry, old friend," Ryder whispered, turning his attention to the bomb. Its displays flickered ominously, counting down to oblivion. Thren's hands danced across the alien interface, sweat beading on her brow. "The fail-safes," she muttered. "If I can just—" Seconds ticked away. Ryder's grip tightened on his weapon, preparing for the worst. Then with a soft chime, the bomb's core dimmed. The countdown froze, then vanished entirely. Ryder sagged against the wall, exhaling a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. "We did it," he said, his voice hollow. As the Phoenix withdrew from Theta Draconis, the crew's elation was tempered by the weight of their actions. Ryder stood alone on the observation deck, staring out at the stars. "Captain," Thren's voice came over the comm, "we're receiving reports from Zor Prime. There's unrest in the Binar High Command." Ryder's eyes narrowed. "What kind of unrest?" "A rising star named Drazak," Thren replied. "He's using Draco's defeat to make a power play, and he's calling for renewed hostilities against Earth." Ryder's teeth clenched. One battle won, but the war was just the beginning. As the Phoenix sped towards home, new storm clouds gathered on the horizon. The Phoenix streaked through hyperspace, the crew's mood a mixture of exhaustion and tentative triumph. Captain Jax Ryder stood at the viewport, his reflection ghostly against the blur of faster-than-light travel. "ETA to Zor Prime, 10 minutes, announced the helm officer. Jax nodded, straightening his uniform. "All hands, prepare for arrival." As they dropped out of hyperspace, the conquered Zorgak's homeworld loomed before them. The planet's emerald continents were crisscrossed with sprawling megacities, their towering spires glinting in the light of the system's twin suns. "We're being hailed," reported Communications Officer Vex. It's a congratulatory message from acting Empress Valara herself. A cheer went up across the bridge. Jax allowed himself a small smile. They'd done it. Emperor Drazak's reign of terror was over. As the Phoenix entered orbit, they were met by an honor guard of Zorgak's fighters. The sleek, chitinous vessels performed an intricate aerial dance around the human ship, a gesture of respect that would have been unthinkable mere days ago. The landing bay of the Imperial Palace was a sea of faces: Zorgak's rebels, human diplomats, and curious onlookers. As Jax descended the Phoenix's ramp, a hush fell over the crowd. At the foot of the stairs stood Valara, her iridescent scales shimmering under the harsh lights. "Captain Ryder," she said, her translator rendering her clicks and whistles into crisp English. "You have done the Zorgak's people a great service. The tyrant Drazak is no more, and a new era of peace begins." Jax bowed his head. "It was our honor, Empress Valara. Humanity looks forward to a new chapter of cooperation between our peoples." The celebrations that followed were unlike anything Jax had ever experienced. The vast halls of the Imperial Palace echoed with music and laughter as humans and Zorgaks mingled freely. For a moment, it seemed as if centuries of hostility had been washed away in an instant. But the euphoria was short-lived. Jax was in the middle of a strategy briefing with Valara when an aide burst into the room, mandibles clicking frantically. "Your Imperial Majesty, we've intercepted encrypted transmissions. It's General Soren." Valara's compound eyes narrowed. "What does that snake want?" The aide's antennae drooped. He's denouncing your rule as illegitimate, Empress. He's calling for loyalists to rally against the human-lover rebels." Jax felt his stomach drop. He'd known Soren, Drazak's brutal second-in-command, wouldn't go down without a fight. But this quickly? Valara turned to Jax, her normally melodious voice now razor-sharp. "Captain, it seems our work is not yet done. Soren must be stopped before he can ignite a full-scale rebellion." Jax nodded grimly. "Agreed. My sources indicate he's gathering forces at a hidden asteroid base. If we strike now, we might be able to cut off the head of the snake before it can strike." The Empress's mandibles clicked in agitation. "Very well. I'll mobilize our forces, but... Jax, I need the Phoenix to lead this assault. Your ship, your tactics, they're our best hope of ending this quickly." Jax straightened, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders once more. "We won't let you down, Empress." As he strode back to the Phoenix, Jax's mind raced. They'd need a plan, something unexpected, something Soren would never see coming. An idea began to form. It was risky, audacious even. But if it worked... "Vex," he called out as he entered the bridge, "get me in touch with our Zorgak's rebel contacts. We're going to need their help for this one." As the crew scrambled to prepare, Jax stared out at the glittering expanse of Zor Prime. They'd won the battle, but the war for peace was not nearly finished. And this time, the fate of two civilizations hung in the balance. The Phoenix's return to Earth was a blur of ceremonies and debriefings. Jax found himself shaking hands with dignitaries, recounting their victories to eager journalists, and enduring endless strategy sessions with high command. But beneath the veneer of triumph, an undercurrent of unease gnawed at him. Late one night, as he pored over intelligence reports in his quarters, a priority comm alert flashed on his screen. Lieutenant Tark's insectoid face appeared, mandibles twitching with agitation. "Captain Ryder, we have a situation." Tark's translator rendered his clicks into clipped English. "A Pure Shield faction has emerged, led by Grenthak. They possess bioweapons capable of annihilating humanity." Jax's blood ran cold. "How certain are we of this intel?" "Highly," Tark replied. "Empress Valara has authorized a joint strike. I'll be leading Zorgak's forces alongside your team." Within hours, the Phoenix was back in action. As they approached the Tethan asteroid belt, Jax briefed his strike team in the ship's ready room. "We're dealing with fanatics," he said, gesturing to the hollow display of Lycosor Prime. "Grenthak's biolab is buried deep. We go in fast, we hit hard, and we neutralize that virus before it can be weaponized." The asteroid loomed before them, a pock-marked colossus adrift in the void. Under cloak, the Phoenix threaded its way through the debris field. Jax led his team to the airlock, checking his suit's seals one last time. "Tark, you're clear for diversionary strikes," he calmed. "We're going in." They launched into the vacuum, maneuvering thrusters carrying them silently towards a maintenance hatch. Inside, the corridors were a maze of twisting metal, shadows dancing in the emergency lighting. The first Pure Shield sentries never saw them coming. Stun bolts dropped the guards before they could raise an alarm. But as they neared the lab's core, all hell broke loose. Alarms wailed, blast doors slammed shut, and from side passages poured nightmarish creatures, Zorgax warriors twisted into berserker abominations. "Fall back!" Jax shouted, laying down covering fire as the monstrosities charged. His team retreated, fighting a running battle through the asteroid's guts. Grenthak's voice boomed over the comms, dripping with hate. "You defile our race, Valara. You and your human pets will burn." They found themselves in a cavernous hangar, grav plating failing. Jax's team used the zero-G to their advantage, outmaneuvering the lumbering berserkers. "There!" shouted his second-in-command. "The virus storage!" They fought their way to the sealed chamber. As Jax's demolitions expert planted charges, another wave of Pure Shield zealots swarmed in. The explosion rocked the asteroid. Alarms shrieked as radiation flooded the chamber, rendering the virus inert. But in the chaos, Jax caught a glimpse of Grenthak, flanked by elite guards, escaping through a far hatch. "Pursuit is too dangerous," Tark's voice crackled. "We must withdraw now." As the Phoenix pulled away from the disintegrating base, Jax stared at the tactical display. They'd won, but at a cost. And somewhere out there, Grenthak lurked with a final sample of the virus, and a galaxy full of discontented Zorgax to recruit. Jax clenched his fist. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. Jax's fist unclenched as he stared at the tactical display. The immediate threat was neutralized, but Grenthak's escape gnawed at him. He turned to his crew, their faces etched with exhaustion and tension. "We're not done yet. Grenthak's out there with a sample of that virus. We need to track him down." Over the following weeks, the Phoenix zigzagged across the galaxy, following whispers and fragments of intel. Each lead brought them closer to their quarry, but the elusive Zorgax commander always seemed one step ahead. Then came the breakthrough. Vex intercepted a coded transmission that, when decrypted, revealed a startling alliance. Grenthak had found new allies in the Iotari Collective, a name that made Jax's skin crawl. "The Iotari?" Lieutenant Thren's antennae twitched with concern. "They're not just arms dealers. They're the worst of the worst." Jax nodded grimly. "And now they've got their hands on a bioweapon that could wipe out entire human colonies." The evidence was clear. Grenthak was trading his remaining virus samples for weapons to fuel the Pure Shield insurrection. Time was running out. Jax opened a secure channel to Empress Valara, laying out the situation in terse, urgent tones. Her compound eyes narrowed as she processed the information. "This is grave news indeed, Captain," she clicked. "You have my authorization for a joint operation. I'll provide our most elite stealth forces." As preparations for the mission ramped up, Lieutenant Tark approached Jax, mandibles clicking nervously. "Captain, I have concerns," he said, voice low. "Someone in Valara's inner circle is feeding information to the rebels. We may have a traitor in our midst." Jax's expression resolute. Another complication, but they had no choice but to push forward. Intelligence pinpointed the exchange in the treacherous Klendathu Nebula. The Phoenix slipped into the roiling gas clouds, sensors straining to penetrate the electromagnetic interference. "There!" Vex called out, gesturing to a blip on his console. "Iotari freighter convoy, dead ahead." Jax turned to his strike team, a motley crew of humans and Zorgax commandos. "Remember the plan. We're mercenary muscle, hired to provide extra security for the exchange. Trust no one, watch each other's backs." They boarded the lead freighter, weapons concealed but ready. The ship's interior was a maze of shadowy corridors and cargo holds. Iotari enforcers eyed them suspiciously, while Pure Shield zealots muttered and clicked amongst themselves. The exchange was set to take place in the cavernous main hold. Jax's team took up positions around the perimeter, every nerve on edge. The Iotari crime lord, a hulking Silurian with cybernetic implants, faced off against Grenthak and his inner circle. "The virus," the Silurian rumbled. "Show it to me." Grenthak produced a sealed container, its contents glowing an ominous green. "And our weapons?" A hatch opened, revealing racks of devastating armaments. Jax's finger tightened on his concealed trigger. Suddenly, the Silurian's eyes locked onto Jax. Recognition flashed across his reptilian features. "You," he roared, "the human who destroyed our Centauri operation." In an instant, the hold erupted into chaos. Blaster fire crisscrossed the zero-gravity environment as Jax's team sprang into action. The Phoenix decloaked outside, catching the convoy in a devastating crossfire. Amidst the melee, Jax locked eyes with Grenthak. The Zorgax commander snarled, mandibles spread wide in challenge. They launched at each other, grappling in the weightlessness, trading vicious blows. Alarms blared as the freighter took heavy damage. A stray shot ruptured the hull, and the vacuum of space began to suck out debris and combatants alike. Jax finally gained the upper hand, pinning Grenthak against a bulkhead. "It's over," he growled. But Grenthak's mandibles curled into a grotesque approximation of a smile. "Is it, human? My agent has already taken the virus. Soon your colonies will burn." A transmission crackled over Jax's comlink. It was Tark, his voice urgent. "Captain, I've identified the traitor. It's Admiral Krell, but he was used, a patsy, to smuggle the virus to—" The rest was lost in static as another explosion rocked the ship. Jax's blood ran cold as the implication sank in. "Phoenix," he barked into his comm, "track that virus. We need to find the real target." As they raced back to the ship, dodging plasma storms and debris, Jax's mind whirled. They'd been played, outmaneuvered at every turn. But there was still a chance to prevent catastrophe. The Phoenix's engines screamed as they pushed to maximum warp. Long-range sensors painted a grim picture, a human outpost in a nearby system, blissfully unaware of the doom racing towards it. They dropped out of warp to a scene of nightmare unfolding. Pure Shield commandos had already breached the colony's outer defenses. The biohazard alarms wailed as the strike team prepared to unleash the virus. Jax gripped the arms of his command chair. "All hands, prepare for immediate planetfall. We stop them here, or billions die." The Phoenix plunged into the planet's atmosphere, weapons blazing, as the fate of two species hung in the balance. The Phoenix plunged through the planet's atmosphere, its hull glowing red-hot as Jax barked orders to his crew. "All hands, prepare for immediate planetfall. We stop them here, or billions die." As they broke through the cloud cover, the horrifying scene below came into focus. Pure Shield commandos had already breached the colony's outer defenses, their sleek assault craft scattered across the landing pads. Biohazard alarms wailed, their shrill cry audible even from the Phoenix's command deck. "Vex, get us as close to the biohazard habitat as you can," Jax commanded, strapping on his combat gear. "Thren, coordinate with colony security. We need to know exactly where those strike teams are headed." The ship touched down with a bone-jarring thud. Jax and his team sprinted down the ramp, weapons at the ready. The air was thick with smoke and the acrid smell of weapons fire. Screams and explosions echoed from the direction of the habitat dome. "This way," Lieutenant Tark called out, his mandibles clicking rapidly as he consulted a holographic map. "The main airlock is just ahead." They rounded a corner and found themselves face-to-face with a squad of Pure Shield commandos. The rebels' insectoid bodies were encased in shimmering energy shields, deflecting the first volley of stunner fire from Jax's team. "Take cover!" Jax shouted, diving behind a fallen storage container. Plasma bolts sizzled overhead, melting holes in the metallic walls behind them. Corporal Zan, a grizzled Zorgax rebel, moved up beside Jax. "Captain, those shields are too strong for our weapons. We need to break through now, or the virus will be released." Zan's compound eyes flickered with drive. Before Jax could respond, the Zorgax warrior charged forward, priming a cluster of high-yield explosives. "For a free Zorgax!" Zan roared, hurling himself into the midst of the Pure Shield formation. The resulting detonation shook the ground, temporarily blinding Jax with its brilliance. When the smoke cleared, a path to the airlock lay open. Zan's sacrifice had cleared the way, but at a terrible cost. "Move, move," Jax ordered, refusing to let the moment of shock paralyze them. They sprinted for the habitat entrance, the remaining Pure Shield forces regrouping behind them. Inside, the habitat was a maze of sterile white corridors and sealed laboratory chambers. Jax's team advanced cautiously, listening for any sign of the Pure Shield strike force. "Captain?" Tark's voice was urgent through the comms. "I've located the containment vaults, but the virus payloads, they've already been prepped for release." Jax's blood ran cold. They raced to the central control hub, dispatching scattered Pure Shield resistance along the way. The main screen showed a cascading failure of the filtration systems. In minutes, the deadly pathogen would flood the entire complex. "There's no time to disarm them all," Jax realized, his mind racing. "Tark, begin evacuating all civilians through the secure corridors. Everyone else, we're initiating a total biohazard purge." Working frantically, Jax accessed the habitat's master controls. He triggered the decompression protocols, designed to expel contaminants into space in the event of a catastrophic breach. Alarms blared as the computer's emotionless voice announced, "Warning, decompression sequence initiated. All personnel evacuate immediately." A thunderous explosion rocked the control room. Pure Shield sappers had breached the outer doors, intent on sabotaging the containment vents. "Hold them off!" Jax shouted, fingers flying across the console as he monitored the ejection sequence. "We just need a few more minutes." The air filled with the chatter of weapons fire as Jax's team engaged the Pure Shield forces in a desperate close-quarters battle. Time seemed to stretch as the virus canisters were systematically expelled and incinerated. Finally, the computer chimed. "Biohazard purge complete. All detected contaminants neutralized." A collective sigh of relief swept through the room, but their victory was short-lived. A blood-curdling shriek pierced the air as a lone Pure Shield commando burst through a side entrance. The zealot clutched a canister of raw virus strain, thumb poised over the release mechanism. "For the purity of Zorgax!" the rebel screamed. Jax and his team opened fire, but it was too late. The canister ruptured, releasing a green mist that quickly filled the chamber. Automated defenses kicked in, sealing the contaminated area and beginning atmospheric evacuation. "Suits on, full seal," Jax ordered, his voice muffled as he pulled on his helmet. "We need to get out of here now." The air thinned rapidly as they fought their way through the complex, precious suit reserves, depleting with each passing second. Jax's mind raced, searching for a way out of this death trap. "There!" he shouted, pointing to a reinforced viewport. "If we can rupture that bulkhead, we might be able to ride the decompression out." They focused their fire on the structural weak points, praying the transparent material would give way before their air ran out. With a resounding crack, the viewport shattered, and they were sucked into the howling void beyond. Tumbling across the outpost's surface, Jax's team regrouped. The grim toll was immediately apparent. Radiation burns, grievous injuries, and at least 2 of their number lay motionless on the regolith. But as the Phoenix swooped in for extraction, Jax's eyes locked onto a departing ship, the distinctive profile of a Pure Shield bioweapons freighter, fleeing the scene of their failed attack. "Not this time," Jax growled, climbing aboard the Phoenix. "Vex, track that ship. We're ending this now." The engines roared to life as they gave chase, determined to bring Grenthak and his genocidal plans to justice once and for all. The Phoenix's engines strained as it pursued the fleeing Pure Shield bioweapon freighter. Jax gripped the arms of his command chair, eyes fixed on the tactical display. "We're gaining on them, Captain," Vex reported, his fingers dancing across the helm controls. "ETA to weapons range, 2 minutes." Suddenly, the ship's sensors blared an urgent alert. Lieutenant Tark's mandibles clicked rapidly as he processed the incoming data. "Captain, long-range scans are detecting a massive buildup of Zorgax warships near the border of human space," Tark announced, his compound eyes widening. "Confirmation coming through now. They belong to Commander Vortak." Jax's blood ran cold. Vortak was a notorious Pure Shield hardliner, known for his unwavering hatred of humanity. If he had gathered such a force, it could only mean one thing. He's rejected Valara's authority, Jax muttered, pieces falling into place. This isn't just an isolated attack. It's the beginning of full-scale war. The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. Their victory over Grenthak's bioweapon plot now seemed hollow in the face of this new threat. "Your orders, sir?" Thrin asked, her voice steady despite the tension. Jax's mind raced, weighing their options. The Phoenix was battered, her crew exhausted, but they couldn't ignore this existential threat to humanity. "Set course for the nearest starbase," Jax commanded. "We need to alert Fleet Command and gather every ship we can muster." As the Phoenix changed course, leaving the Pure Shield freighter to escape, Jax opened a channel to Empress Valara. Her holographic image flickered to life, her compound eyes narrowing as Jax relayed the dire news. "This is most grave, Captain," Valara clicked, her antennae twitching with agitation. "Vortak's actions threaten everything we've worked for. I will rally what moderate factions I can to your aid, but many of my people still harbor doubts about alliance with humanity." Jax nodded grimly. "We'll take whatever help we can get, Empress. The fate of both our species hangs in the balance." Over the next hours, as the Phoenix raced towards the gathering storm, Jax coordinated with what remained of the human fleet. Ships answered the call from across settled space. Everything from state-of-the-art battlecruisers to retrofitted civilian transports. It was a motley armada, but it was all that stood between humanity and annihilation. They dropped out of warp in the Alaris system, a remote neutron star cluster that marked the border between human and Zorgak space. Vortak's fleet was already there, a vast array of sleek Zorgak's warships stretching as far as the eye could see. "Status report," Jax barked, studying the tactical overlay. "We're outnumbered at least 3-1, Tark replied, his voice grim. "Vortak's vanguard is moving to engage." Jax took a deep breath, steadying himself. "All ships, battle formations. We hold the line here, or Earth burns, for humanity." The void erupted in chaos as the two fleets clashed. Phased singularity beams lanced out from Zorgak's dreadnoughts, answered by the thunderous report of human mass drivers. Fighters and corvettes dueled in swirling dogfights, weaving between the larger capital ships. Jax piloted the Phoenix directly into the teeth of Vortak's front lines, the ship's experimental shields barely holding against the onslaught. They carved a path of destruction, Vex's pinpoint accuracy allowing them to strike at the Pure Shield fleet's weak points. "Multiple contacts bearing 220, Thrin called out. "They're making a push for the colony worlds." Jax's eyes narrowed as he spotted Vortak's flagship, a massive construct jam packed with singularity cannons. The Pure Shield commander's voice crackled over an open channel filled with contempt. "Your defiance ends here, human," Vortak snarled. "We will burn your worlds to ash, starting with that pitiful ball of dirt you call Earth." "Not while I draw breath," Jax growled. He turned to his crew, drive etched on his face. "Vex, plot a course straight for that flagship. Thrin, divert all power to the experimental slipstream drive. We're going to give the Pure Shields a taste of human ingenuity." The Phoenix's engines flared to life, propelling them towards Vortak's command ship at impossible speeds. Reality itself seemed to warp around them as the slipstream drive engaged, enveloping both vessels in a bubble of twisted spacetime. Alarms blared as the ship's system struggled to compensate for the gravimetric distortions. Jax's hands flew across the controls, fighting to keep the Phoenix stable within the chaotic rift. "Sir," Tark shouted over the din, "Vortak's arming some kind of quantum singularity device. If it detonates, it could collapse the entire bubble and take half the system with it." Jax's mind raced, searching for a solution. They were trapped in a deadly game of cat and mouse, each ship maneuvering for advantage within the confines of the space-time bubble. "There's only one way to contain that blast," Jax realized, his voice grim. "Tark, prepare to eject all our slipstream coils. We'll use them to create a containment field." The lieutenant's mandibles clicked in shock. "But sir, that would leave us stranded." "Better stranded than vaporized," Jax replied. "Do it." As Tark worked feverishly to implement the plan, Jax brought the Phoenix alongside Vortak's flagship. The two vessels hung suspended in the warped void, trapped in their own pocket of twisted reality. Coils ejected, Tark reported. Containment field? Online. Jax nodded, his face hardened. Now we end this. Prepare for boarding action. We're taking that ship.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel. And for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.